What's up everyone, my name is James aka Widowed, and this is going to be a breakdown of the entire Demonic Pacts combat mastery system for League 6. They revealed it all just last night, and there's only a couple details that we don't know, which is mainly how we get points and progress through this system, and how many points we get. Got a couple of guesses in that regard, but if you're looking at this and you're confused and you have no idea what the hell I'm staring at, don't worry, we're going to explain it all in short time. But this is basically what they've done for the combat masteries this year, and it is effectively a Path of Exile skill tree, which is something I've been wanting for so long for them to do in a league, so I'm pumped about this. If you've never played Path of Exile, the general idea is you start in the middle, and as you branch out further by assigning skill points, you'll unlock more powerful effects. You tend to have these minor nodes that just have a small benefit, like chance to regenerate runes, ammo and charges being improved from 50% base, up to 55 with this one, for example, if you select this node. And then you've got these more major nodes that have more specialized effects. For example, the first three that we can pick here are whenever you regenerate runes, boost your magic level for 30 ticks by 1, up to a max of 10. Your minimum hit with melee is increased by 3, and it's further increased by 3 for each tile between you and the target. There's a lot of mechanics around making melee longer range in this, so we'll go into it all in detail. I'm just giving it an idea here of what these give. Whenever you regenerate ammo from ranged, you have a 25% chance to fire a ranged echo, which is an additional attack against the target, which can not trigger an additional attack off the additional attack until you unlock something further down, which does make that a thing. But basically, you'll get a certain amount of points and you will traverse these trees, picking up the abilities that you think are cool or useful, and eventually probably getting into these keystones, which are basically the most powerful things, but they're all at the edges of the tree here. You can see we've got 6 for ranged, 4 each for melee and mage. So there's a lot of flexibility when it comes to combat masteries this year. The main thing is we have no idea how many of these points we're going to get, but I would take a guess that it's going to be between 30 and 40, and I'll tell my reason why. If we light up everything in the mage tree, let's say we just want to focus entirely on mage and nothing else, that's going to cost us 38 points. 38 points to fully buff out our mage. That's why I think that 40 is around the number to be going for. I checked earlier and I think melee has 37 nodes and ranged has 36. It's all in that very small, like they're not far apart from each other. So I'm thinking 35 to 40 is the range of points we're probably going to be looking at, which does give us some sort of idea. If you think that you should be able to like max out one style, maybe not every node, maybe to give you like 35 points. So let's play it really on the safe side and say it's like 30 points. Well, okay, in this example, let's say someone who doesn't want to do a lot of magic, but they still want to get a benefit from it, so they're going to be using a powered staff. They'll probably want to take this. Then their shadow will be better. It'll be sped up by 3 ticks. And that's only going to cost them 7 points. So they could not specialize in mage, but have just their powered staffs boosted, if that's all they plan to ever use, for just 7 points. And then they could still, I don't know, go over here and go for, I'm obviously not like putting these in properly how you would path to them, just letting the auto tool do its thing. But yeah, you could spec up to a couple of different melee nodes, maybe. You get the idea. You could specialize a bit into melee as well, maybe even a bit more, and then still have a few points left over probably to chuck some ranged ones in too. We're on 31 points here at the minute, and you can see there's a decent bit in one tree and a little splash in the other trees that maybe gives our off styles something to aim for. That being said, if you did want to specialize fully in one tree, there is ways to buff doing that. These nodes that give you 15% prayer penetration, so you could pick these up all the way up to 100. There's some up top here as well, some of the sides here. Yeah, you have a lot of freedom here. There is so much freedom, and I urge you to go onto this site and have a play around. Let me shout it out because it's a brilliant tool that I discovered this morning when I got up. OSRS Leagues Countdown.io/tree. Somebody has made this tool, which is far better than the Jagex tool. This horrible Jagex one. You have to like click to bring up the power and then click and then go to a different one and then forget what it is you're even looking at. This is awful. Don't use this. Use this. I'll leave a link in the description of the video. Some absolute legend has created it for us and it just has the hovers, which makes things way easy to look at. Alright, I've given a general overview. I've given my expectations around the amount of points that I expect us to have in total. Let's dive in and talk about each of the three styles and what its tree has specialities for. We'll start with Mage. So as I mentioned, the first one here is whenever you regenerate runes, your magic level is boosted by 1 for 30 ticks, max 10 boost. It's obviously good for powered staffs because they scale off level generally, but it'll also just make him a bit more accurate, I guess. It's the first nerd on the tree after all, so you don't expect it to go crazy. After that, we have 4 different elemental symbols that are all to do with regenerating different types of runes. So there's a lot to do with regenerating runes in the magic tree in particular, and so any nodes that give you extra chance to regenerate runes, like these ones here at the side, do have a bit more power with magic, I think. The air one here, when you regen air runes, you have a 15% chance to restore 1 prayer point per rune regenerated. Pretty nice. Likewise, whenever you regenerate water runes, you're healed 1 per rune regenerated with this node. So you could go basically turn your water spells into healing spells with the nodes that we'll discuss as we go further. The fire one, when you regenerate fire runes, the damage of your next spell hit is increased by 1 for each rune. And the earth one increases your defense for 30 ticks, so kind of similar to this one, but makes you a bit tankier. Personally, I think the air, the water, and the fire ones are good. Less interested in the defense generally, but plenty on offer depending on which one you think you'll find yourself using more. Heading in to the next row here, we have a generic plus 35% accuracy in all styles. This one does actually appear again over here and down here in the range, so you can get this technically up to 105% accuracy if you took all 3, but there's more of a generic one here, not mage specific. We've got plus 15 accuracy on these small nodes on this tier. The small nodes on the next tier are plus 1 magic percent damage, and the same again on the final tier out. This node, whenever you heal with demonic pacts, it can overheal you up to 30% of your base hit points level, so basically you can go to like 129. This is also at the side over here, so it may also appear in other places too. Some of these major nodes do have multiple copies of them on the board. 30% extra chance to regenerate runes, ammo and charges, another one that we may see elsewhere, and one that's especially helpful for mage given the fact that a lot of these mages trigger from the regen. Plus 15% permanent defense boost. Yeah, this turns out to be like more of a generic tier in the middle before you get into the more specialized mage stuff after these elemental power-ups. Okay, now we have some interesting ones. Powered staff or wand here and here can generate air, earth, fire, or water runes whenever you use powered staffs. So it doesn't just give you the charges back, it also gives you the runes back. Which is handy, because as we know, that's going to trigger all our shit. It also can mean that you trigger the ones that aren't even the spell you're casting, because it's whenever you regenerate charges from a staff, like a Trident of the Seas or whatever, it's going to make all the types that you have this ticked, so it can trigger all of these at once. Likewise, with wands and staffs, we have increasing their attack rate by 3 whole ticks, but it reduces their max hit by 8. Of one-handed powered staffs at least, not the two-handed, so I guess Shadow still OP. If you want to speed up your spellbook attacks, that is this node right here. You can do that as well. But that's about all the buffs they have to powered staves. Most of these are about elemental stuff. Moving on to this next little bracket here, we have air, water, fire, and earth mages. Again, air spells deal +7 damage for each active prayer. Slap on steel skin and preserve and everything else you can think of, folks. Your air spells are going to get hella stonky. Water spells deal increased damage the higher health percentage you have. You get +20% damage at 100% health, which is great because water spells are going to keep healing us up to full as we use them. Fire spells burn you up to 6% of your max hit points to increase damage by double the amount burned for. Bit of risk and reward in this one. It can't kill you, but it does hurt you. And earth spells up here reduce the enemy's defense and magic defense levels by 2. So this could be great actually if you want to get through something tanky with Mage. You can just repeatedly reduce its levels with whatever standard attacks. Alright, and now is when things get really interesting. On this tier, we have the 4 type of ancient magics now count as elemental magics. So we've got smoke spells count as air, blood spells count as fire, ice spells count as water, and shadow spells count as earth. This effectively means if you take this, for example, your ice barrage is going to count as a water spell, which means it's going to deal increased damage at +20%. It's going to regenerate runes for you, which heal you. Not only that, if you take this keystone at the top, it's going to bounce back to you, healing you for 60% of damage dealt, which is massive. It's going to keep you topped up, so you have that +20% the whole way. You can make your ice spells also blood spells effectively with this, and take advantage of water elemental weakness if it happens to be there. Like, there's some really cool things going on. That's why I'm urging everyone to just have a play around with this themselves, see what they can come up with. With smoke spells or air spells, you have a +1% chance to max hit for every 1 prayer bonus you have equipped, which is doubled against enemies that are actually weak to air spells. I guess wearing something like Sunfire Fanatic is actually going to increase your accuracy rather than make you less accurate, so it's an interesting one to consider. Fire spells turn into an AoE that bounces to nearby targets and applies burn, which means your blood spells, if you're taking this node, are gonna hit more targets and burn them as well. Very interesting one to be taken. And earth spells deal additional flat damage based off your current defense level. So flat damage is very powerful, and if you're taking some of these other earth nodes, you can boost your defense by quite a lot. Actually, a tank mage build going with this that would probably be pretty disgusting. Like, you're boosting your defense level every time you regenerate an earth rune. There's more defensive nodes you could take for plus permanent defense boost, which is just going to add flat damage. This could be pretty nasty actually. I'm only just realizing this now upon recording it, but this is pretty good because it has no cap. But that is magic covered. That is basically everything we have over here other than the little small minor nodes at the sides. This one is one that can overheal you, so you could overheal up to 60%, I guess, if you took both of them. This one is a bit weirder. Whenever an attack deals 0 damage to you while you're either wearing a two-handed shield or offhand, you're healed for 2 and restore 2 prayer points. I think you can have a weapon equipped still with an offhand. Like, when don't you have an offhand? So I guess whenever you get hit for 0, heal for 2 and restore 2 prayer is pretty good, but I'm a bit confused about the wording of it, like, or an offhand is equipped. I'm not entirely sure how that's gonna work out yet. And the extra prayer penetration there we already mentioned. Let's take a look at melee next. As I already mentioned, the first one here is increasing your minimum hit by 3 with melee, and a further 3 for each additional tile between you and the target. How are you going to get additional tiles between you and the target? Well, you can double your range with two-handed weapons with this node if you would like to do that. That will certainly help. So you can be a tile away for an extra +3. If it's a halberd, you could be 4 tiles away and get +12. 12, I think, or +9. I don't know exactly how it works. My brain's still booting up this morning, so mental math not the strong point. This second node here is very interesting. Each melee attack with a heavy melee weapon, so one that is over a kilogram, has a chance to trigger a blind bag attack, which is a random heavy melee weapon in your inventory. You get a free attack with it as if it was equipped, ignoring attack delays and stat requirements. It can't trigger from spec, so basically if I hit something with a heavy weapon, a mace, I don't know, then I have a chance to get out my halberd and hit with it as well instantly. This is a very, very interesting effect, and there's more things that buff it further down in the tree, so definitely something I imagine people will be playing around with. And if you have a bunch of different weapons in your invent that it could potentially blind bag with, I think that improves the chances of triggering it. If you prefer smaller melee weapons though, like a dragon dagger for example, you can make anything under a kilogram always trigger an additional melee hit using 40% of your base max with a minimum of 1. This is pretty cool. I don't know how many weapons are under a kilogram. I'd have to look it up. A rune sim is 1.8 kilograms, so that's too heavy. A rune sword is 1.8. Okay, so no swords, but it's basically just daggers for this. What about the sulfur blades? They're 1.8. Dragon claws, there's an interesting one. 0.9 kilograms. So this can give your dragon claws a double hit on every normal attack, but it can basically make them always double hitting. That's an interesting one. Dragon dagger as well will be low enough. Abyssal dagger is another one. Yeah, there's a few options, not too many for this one, but a few if you happen to be using one. Definitely a powerful hack to pick up. And then we have the Thorns effect. While you have a shield equipped, you instantly hit enemies that attack you for 3 melee damage. It can only trigger once per hit splat and will trigger if you take 0 damage. I think this could be pretty good because it counts as melee damage. The minimum hit would be increased, and it doesn't say when you're attacked in melee, so if something ranges you from a distance, like 10 tiles away, and you thorns it, then you're gonna get 33 damage on the thorns, right? I think that's how that works. Maybe I'm wrong, but it depends if this scales with this. If it does, it's very good. On the next row here, keeping with the theme of shields, while you have a shield equipped, you have a 0.1% chance per defense level to reflect all damage back to the attacker. Definitely something that could be considered, maybe in that mage tank build I was talking about earlier. You're buffing your defense to ridiculous amounts. This one, special attacks have a 20% chance to not consume any energy. I guess that works better with things that have lots of spec attacks because there's more chance of triggering it. Then again, you'll get less value out of the trigger itself resolving, so yeah, maybe it's just a 1 in 5 chance to get a double Godsword spec or whatever. Plus 35% accuracy we've seen in other places as well, and whenever you attack an enemy from at least 2 tiles away with any style, you restore 2 special attack energy. This one's definitely interesting and might be something that people want to dip into from more hybrid styles because ranged and mage triggers it as well, so definitely want to keep an eye on. In the next tier, the miners are +1 melee damage in both these last 2 tiers now. And here we have a self-heal based off attacking with a melee weapon or your thorns triggering. And you get more health the further away you are. Again, so if you can trigger the thorns by being attacked from super far away, it'll actually heal you as well. Thorns could be really good. This one right next to it is very interesting. Melee weapons under 1 kilogram or one-handed increase your melee strength by 20% of your strength level. That is a lot of extra damage for small weapons. Melee weapons under 1 kilogram attack 1 tick faster. Oh my god, I never checked a whip, did I? A whip's gotta be under 1 kilogram because they're showing it in the picture here. Yep, it's 0.4. Okay, so that one earlier that we had, under 1 kilogram always trigger an additional melee hit for 40% of your base max. That works with whips. That's probably the biggest one that I overlooked there. So you could get it to have have an extra 20% of your strength level, an extra tick, and 2 hits every time just by taking these. Alright, that seems kind of cracked. You don't really need many points to get some power out of one of these, which is why I think tri-breeding is probably a pretty solid method this year if you stick to the things that you specialize in. Like if I only used a whip or something else like. But yeah, 1 tick faster here is definitely, that'll be a 3 tick double hitting whip with extra strength bonus. That's kind of crazy. Kind of tempted by that. Everything's tempting me this league. Alright, further down the tree, we can increase melee strength even further by 50% of your Warm Prayer bonus. Hello, Sunfire Fanatic once again. And if you have overhealed hit points, your attacks with a melee weapon can consume them to increase your minimum hit by 5 for each of those. Definitely interesting. This one's cool. When hitting a target with a 2-handed melee weapon, you have a 5% chance to trigger a ranged echo, as if you have a bow, crossbow, and thrown weapon equipped. If you're hybriding, then you could get a lot of extra bonuses from this, because you can buff all 3 of those, and if it counts as all 3 at the same time, that means you'll trigger all 3 of the effects. Very, very interesting if you're hybriding with ranged. Okay, so there's 2 of these thorns heal nodes as well. Very interesting that there's one on the other side as well. Alright, in the theme of longer range again, your max hit when attacking with a melee weapon is increased by 4% and an additional 4% for every 3 tiles of distance between you and your target. So it really is rewarding the halberds and the longer range melee weapons. Definitely, if you're looking to go into a halberd build, you probably want Mauritania for the Noxious Halberd. That is going to be a strong way to build melee in this league for a big slapper. And in the keystone at the end of this one, if your melee attack range is at least 4, it's increased to 7, which is pretty big. It lets you get extra benefit out of all these distance related nodes. And all halberds slower than 5 ticks have their attack rate set to 5 ticks. I don't know what attack rate halberds usually have. Well, Noxious is 5 ticks. Crystal's 7 ticks though. So if you don't have a Noxious halberd, then this is going to make the other ones better if you have Crystal, for example. I still don't think you want to be speccing into this if you only have access to a Dragon halberd though. So I'm not sure how relevant the last part of that is, but the increased range is definitely good for that build. In the blind bag column, we have the thing that increases your chance. Here it is. For each unique heavy melee weapon in your inventory, chance of a blind bag trigger is increased by 2% up to a maximum of 10. So that was the interesting one we mentioned earlier. And yeah, it can let you get more blind bag triggers, which if you have the notable here, the keystone, will also increase the max hit of your blind bag by the amount of weapons you have, up to a maximum of 5 weapons. So you can really go for this pulling the random weapons out of the bag and slapping people with them build if you want to try it. I'm sure it'll definitely be fun. Wear full Darox and then you just might pull out your Darox axe for a free hit now and then. could be fun. Well, if you have 5 or each unique heavy melee weapon in your run, yeah, but you could wear full Darox with an axe and then have a Darox axe in your invent as well, right? And then it might just pull it out for an extra hit every now and then. Just an interesting concept in my head. Moving on, we have whenever you deal damage with a melee weapon, and this is in the tree that is getting the extra hits in as well, you restore 2% spec per hit. So yeah, could be pretty big. Finally, in the Thorns tree, we have all recoil and Thorn style effects deal additional damage equal to 1% of your total defense bonuses. This is pretty cracked if you go in for that big defense Thorns build. The more I'm seeing this top side of the tree, the more I'm kind of tempted to go for a tank mage build with Thorns and heavy defense. I don't know, I'm gonna have to play around with that once we get more info on the total points and stuff. And finally here, when the Thorns effect triggers, it will always hit twice, dealing 50% of its damage in the second hit. Extra damage, never bad. And that is all we have for the melee section. Finally, moving on down to the bottom, we have ranged. When you regenerate ammo, you have a 25% chance to fire a ranged echo. That is a free attack with your ranged weapon. Simple enough. While a bow is equipped, those echoes will never miss. Just a note there to say that it doesn't work with the Atlatl. None of the packs here seem to work with the Eclipse Atlatl, so don't expect to be using that with ranged in this league. If you have a crossbow equipped, you have a plus 15% chance to trigger ranged echoes, so that goes up to a 40% chance. If you have a thrown weapon equipped, you have a 20% chance to automatically just max hit. 1 in 5 attacks being a max hit is pretty nutty. We've got some standard nodes here moving forward. Before this one, you have a 5% chance per attack in any style to roll max accuracy, and it's increased by 5 for each tile distance between you and your target. One that could be combined with the melee one as well. I definitely think there's potential for a ranged melee build as well. And that being said, this works just as well for extra accuracy on Mage if you think you need that. We've got plus 30% chance to regenerate runes, plus 35% accuracy in all combat styles, and here, while an offhand item is equipped, gain 5 melee strength, 5 range strength, and 2% magic damage. I think this is a pretty nice node to try and get to no matter what you're building, because it just benefits all 3 styles. Further on into the tree, we get a couple of tiers worth of ranged damage minor nodes, 3 tiers worth even, they're just different icons for some reason. So lots of extra damage here on the minor nodes that you travel through to get to your mages. Ranged prayers are 30% more effective. Pretty big buff, especially if you have, like, rigor. Ranged strength is increased by 1 for every 10 hit points difference between your current hit points and hit points level. So I guess there's 2 ways of looking at this. You could view it like Darox, and your range strength is going to increase for every 10 hit points between your current hit points level. Or you could use some of the other packs that allow you to overheal 30%, and then you're getting an extra 3 range strength from being 30 over. This feels like it's pretty low scaling, but maybe I'm underestimating it. It could be powerful, and at the end of the day, it's only going to cost you 1 point if you're already in the area for other reasons. And over on this side, ranged echoes can now trigger ranged echoes at half your chance to trigger them, up to 4 times, so you can continuously just get extra attacks appearing, which is definitely very nice. Interesting to note in this tier as well that we do have confirmation that we're getting a double hitting crossbow from the King Black Dragon. So if you're playing to take Wilderness and do a crossbow build, then you'll be hitting twice, each hit having a 40% chance to trigger a ranged echo, and then those echoes could carry on echoing even further. Definitely could be a powerful build. And if you want to make crossbows even bigger max hits, you can, but it's going to make them slower in the process. Bit of trade-off with this one, 70% extra damage for 2 ticks on crossbow speed though. It's a lot of damage, but it's also a downside, and not many other nodes on the tree have downsides, so I'm not too sure how I feel about this one. On the other hand, instead of making them slower, you can make your bows attack 1 tick faster with this node. Definitely nothing wrong with that if you're planning on using a twisted bow or the new Hespori short bow that we've heard about, then yeah, you definitely want to pick up this node. And this node over here changes your thrown weapons into kind of atlatls. You get range strength increased by 80% of your melee strength, so basically you can wear a fighter's torso and obsidian legs and get extra range strength from that for your dragon knives. I don't know how good this is, but maybe somebody finds something that it's just cracked with. Like maybe you just use dragon darts as a thrown weapon if there's enough value in this tree. I can definitely see that being a path people go down. That being said, the bow, crossbow, and thrown weapon, I don't think a blowpipe counts as any of those. So like, is the blowpipe from KQ just dead this league because it doesn't work with anything, or does it count as a thrown weapon? I'm not sure on the exacts of that. On the next tier here, whenever you regenerate ammo, you have a plus 5% chance to fire a ranged echo against the enemy. Definitely good if you want to increase your chances even further of getting those echo attacks. And as someone who played melee in previous leagues where echoes were available, they are a lot of fun. It's nice to see them get shifted to another style this time, so it's not just the same. And yeah, there's 2 of these nodes here, so you can pick up them both if you one for an extra 10% in total. Down on our keystones, we've got hitting with a bow increases your bow's minimum hit by 1, capping at 15% of your base maximum hit. Bonus is halved when you take damage that you didn't or couldn't pray against. This one is the same, but it's for your max hit. If you pick up both of them, then every time you hit, it's going to increase your minimum and max hit by 1, and it's going to go up to 15% bonus. It halves if you take damage, basically. Like, as long as you don't take damage, you keep praying correctly, then you'll maintain the bonus. And if your bows are faster, then you'll stack it up even quicker. In the crossbow side of things, this is something that would make increasing your damage by 70% worth it. Crossbow hits always max hit. Yeah, I'm fine with them being slower if they've got plus 70% damage and they always max it. And yeah, let's say their accuracy rolls twice as well, so that it basically never misses. Ruby bolts anyone? This could be kind of fucking disgusting, to be honest. Crossbows could definitely be strong this leagues. Kind of makes me want to get the Wildy for KBD, but fuck Wildy. In the thrown ones, we have while a thrown weapon is equipped, increase your ranged accuracy by 60, and when attacking with a thrown weapon, you now throw an additional nearby target. Yeah. Again, I'm not sure. Let me look up blowpipe. Does it count as a thrown weapon? Blowpipes are considered thrown weapons. That's what it says on the wiki here. Like darts, blowpipes are considered thrown weapons. So that means that you can use a blowpipe with all these thrown ones. Okay, that makes them a lot better. Definitely glad that I looked that up. Yeah, so you could use like a blowpipe with a melee strength setup and throw additional targets, get increased range accuracy even though you're in your melee set. Yep, this is looking good. This is looking good. Extra chances to echo with max hit. Definitely a lot of power there in ranged. And then the final things that we haven't looked at are these little ones at the sides. While protection prayers are not active, you restore 1 prayer point every 15 ticks. It's sped up by 1 tick for every 7-1 prayer bonus you have. Yeah, this is kind of irrelevant, I'm not gonna lie. Whenever you max hit from at least 3 tiles away, your next hit from a different style deals plus 25% damage. This one's definitely interesting for a more tri-bridge style. Definitely worth considering. And on the other side, we have the overheal with demonic pacts up to 30% and an extra 30% chance to regen runes and ammo. And that is every single node on the tree. As you can see, there is a ton. I highly recommend everyone to just go and have a play around with this tool. Again, I will link it in the description. It's so much more user friendly than the Jagex website, which is not surprising. But that being said, no shade on Jagex, they've kind of fucking cooked this league, at least with the combat mastery tree. I'm very excited to find out how many points we're actually going to get, and if that information becomes available, or when it becomes available, I'll make sure to leave it in a pinned comment in this video, so if you're watching it at a future date and the information is there, you will see it. With all that being said, I think that's going to be all from me on this one. I'll have similar videos coming out with a relic roundup once they are all available, and same for the echo items. I'll be going over those too once they've been released. Until the next time though, it's going to be all from me. Look after yourselves, be lovely to one another, and I'll see you on the next one.